Have you ever noticed the quiet, heavy exhaustion that settles in when you realize you are always the one reaching out first? What if the connection you are desperately trying to keep alive is the very thing stealing your peace? Most of your suffering in relationships is not caused by the other person's silence. It is caused by how tightly you are holding onto the rope, trying to pull them toward you. If you have ever felt emotionally exhausted, ignored, or anxious, wondering if anyone would speak to you, if you stopped speaking first, this is for you. Stay until the end, because the final lesson may change the way you see this pain forever. We live in a world that often teaches us that effort equals love. We believe that if we just check in one more time, send one more message, or make one more plan, the other person will eventually match our energy. You convince yourself that they are simply busy. You tell yourself they just forget. You fear that if you stop initiating, the bridge between you will collapse completely. And so, you carry the entire weight of the relationship on your own shoulders. But this constant reaching outward drains your spirit. It disturbs your inner calm. You wait for a response that takes hours or days, feeling a heavy weight in your chest. You start to question your own worth, wondering why your presence does not seem to hold the same value for them as theirs does for you. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that much of our daily suffering comes from attachment, specifically our attachment to how we want things to be, rather than accepting them exactly as they are. When you constantly initiate every interaction, you are not just trying to speak to someone. You are trying to control the existence of the connection. You are fighting against the natural reality of the present moment. In Buddhist thought, a relationship is not a possession you can secure through force. It is an experience that must arise naturally. Imagine a small wooden boat floating on a river. You are standing on the shore, holding a heavy rope tied to the bow. The current naturally pulls the boat gently toward the center of the water. But out of fear that the boat will float away and never return, you grip the rope tight. Your hands burn, your arms ache. You spend all your waking energy pulling, dragging the boat back to the shallow edge. You keep the boat near you, yes, but you have destroyed your own peace to do it. You are no longer enjoying the beauty of the river. You are only fighting the current. This is what happens when you force a conversation, when you are always the one picking up the phone, sending the first message, or organizing the time together. You are pulling the rope. You are terrified of what the silence means, so you fill it with your own endless effort. But true connection cannot be manufactured. If a bond only exists because you are constantly keeping it alive, it is not a mutual bond. It is a burden disguised as love. Ask yourself, what are you afraid will happen if you simply let go of the rope? If you step back and allow silence to exist, what truth are you afraid that silence will finally reveal? Pause. Breathe. The next time you feel the urgent, anxious need to reach out, just to make sure they are still there, stop. Observe the thought without following it. Let the feeling rise and fall like a passing cloud. Give the connection permission to breathe without your constant intervention. Peace is not found in forcing someone to stay. It is found in resting in your own value. But stepping back is often the hardest thing to do when you are used to doing all the work. Because beneath the exhaustion of reaching out is a powerful illusion we all struggle to release. What if the harder you try to keep someone close, the further peace moves away? Here is a truth few people want to face. We often use our effort and our words not as a bridge to connect, but as a chain to bind. The tighter you hold, the more you suffer. When you are always the one reaching out first, you are operating under a quiet but powerful illusion, the illusion of control. You believe that as long as you are sending the messages, making the plans, and starting the conversations, the relationship will not end. You think your effort can substitute for their absence. You try to manage the timing of their replies. You replay past conversations in your head, trying to figure out what you can say next to guarantee a response. You are clinging to the connection out of a deep fear of loss, terrified that if you let go of the wheel, the entire relationship will crash. Buddhism reminds us that everything in life is subject to impermanence. Nothing stays exactly the same, and no amount of human effort can freeze a relationship in place forever. One of the deepest lessons of Buddhism is that suffering arises when we try to control what is fundamentally outside of our control. And you can never control the heart, the attention, or the willingness of another person. By constantly forcing the interaction, you are resisting the reality of how the other person is choosing to show up. You are fighting the truth of the present moment. Imagine holding a handful of dry, fine sand. If you hold your hand open, palm facing the sky, relaxed and still, the sand rests peacefully in your hand. It goes nowhere. But the moment you become afraid that the wind might blow it away, you panic. You clench your fist tightly, trying to secure the sand, trying to trap it. What happens? The harder you squeeze, the faster the sand slips through the cracks of your fingers. By trying to control the sand, you lose it entirely, leaving your hand empty and aching. In your daily life, this is exactly what happens. When you constantly reach out from a place of anxiety, you are clenching the sand. You send another message because they were brief. You ask if they are upset because they were quiet. You try to force a response just to relieve your own inner tension. You want them to prove that they are still there. But this forced effort pushes the natural ease out of the relationship. It replaces genuine connection with a heavy, unspoken obligation. Think about your own life. When you pick up your phone to start a conversation yet again, ask yourself, are you reaching out because you have something joyful and beautiful to share? Or are you reaching out because you are afraid they will forget you if you do not? Is this action bringing you peace, or is it feeding your fear? Pause, breathe. Do not send the message just to calm your mind. Stop trying to force a closed door to open. Let the feeling of uncertainty rise within you and observe it without following it. Do your part by being kind, open, and willing. But then you must release the outcome, because true peace is not found in forcing someone to pay attention to you. It is found in accepting what is, without the desperate need to change it. But letting go of control means you must finally allow the connection to stand on its own without your constant help. And this is where the next truth begins. 3. The wisdom of non-attachment and letting things be. What if the truest form of love, both for yourself and for others, is simply stepping back? Here is the truth we often ignore. We confuse attachment with connection, and in doing so, we trap ourselves in a cycle of endless disappointment. You stay awake wondering why they did not reply. You analyze their silence, looking for hidden meanings, hoping that this time they will finally notice your absence and reach out first. You are constantly waiting for something to change. You cling to the idea of who you want them to be, rather than seeing who they are actually choosing to be right now. You exhaust yourself by pouring water into a cup that has a hole in the bottom, hoping that if you just pour fast enough, the cup will stay full. But this endless waiting creates a prison in your own mind. It drains your joy and leaves you feeling completely invisible. Buddhist wisdom teaches us the profound practice of non-attachment. Non-attachment does not mean you do not care. It does not mean you become cold, distant, angry, or bitter. It simply means you stop demanding that people and situations conform to your desires. Buddhism reminds us that clinging to a specific outcome, like forcing someone to reciprocate your effort, is the root cause of our suffering. When we let things be, we allow reality to unfold exactly as it is, without trying to twist it into what our ego wishes it was. Imagine a wild bird resting on your windowsill. You find it beautiful and you want it to stay. But instead of letting it rest in the open air, you anxiously reach out, trying to touch it, trying to convince it not to leave. You constantly offer it seeds, wave your hands, and make noise so it knows you are there. The bird becomes startled by your restless movement. If you truly want to experience the beauty of the bird, you must remain perfectly still. You must allow it the space to either fly away or choose to stay on its own. In relationships, we do the exact same thing. We wave our hands, we send the extra text, we force the interaction because we are terrified of what an open space might mean. We worry that if we do not initiate the conversation, the other person will simply forget we exist. But if a connection requires you to trap it with your constant effort, it is not a genuine bond. It is an act of desperation. Ask yourself, what are you still holding on to? Are you holding on to a real, living connection? Or are you just holding on to the memory of how things used to be? What if letting go is the only way to finally see the truth of where you truly stand with this person? Pause. Breathe. The next time you feel the sudden urge to push for a response, do nothing. Stop managing the connection. Let the silence exist without rushing to fill it. Allow the other person the dignity of their own choices, and allow yourself the grace of standing still. You do not have to chase what is already leaving, and you do not have to force what is meant to stay. Letting things be brings a quiet, profound relief to your heavy heart, because peace is not found in keeping everyone around you. It is found in discovering who stays when you stop pulling. And this requires us to look at how energy naturally moves in our lives. 4. The river and the rock, letting connections flow. What if your exhaustion is not a sign that you need to try harder, but a signal that you need to stop resisting the flow of life? Here is the truth few people are willing to accept. Forcing a connection is like trying to push water upstream. We spend so much time agonizing over one-sided relationships. You analyze every unreturned message. You wait anxiously for a response that takes days to arrive. You feel deeply hurt when your warmth is met with a cold, distracted wall. To fix the pain, you overcompensate. You try to initiate more, planning and reaching out, thinking that if you just show them how much you care, they will eventually match your effort. But this relentless pushing only empties you out. Buddhism teaches us the deep wisdom of flowing with the reality of the present moment, rather than fighting it. When we struggle against the natural course of things, we create our own friction and our own suffering. Buddhism reminds us that true harmony does not come from forcing the world to bend to our will. It comes from yielding, observing, and allowing life to move exactly as it needs to. Imagine a clear, fast-moving river flowing toward the ocean. Deep in the middle of this river sits a heavy, solid rock. The rock does not chase the water. It does not beg the water to slow down, and it does not desperately reach out to hold the water back. It simply rests securely in its own place. The water flows around it naturally, washing over it with ease. But imagine if that rock suddenly became terrified of being left behind. Imagine if it tried to uproot itself and chase the water downstream. It would lose its secure foundation. It would tumble violently in the current, breaking itself apart against the riverbed, entirely losing its peace. In your daily life, this is what happens when you abandon your own center to chase someone else. When you are the only one starting the conversation, you are uprooting yourself. You run after people whose natural current is moving away from you. You chase after someone who is too distracted, too distant, or simply not choosing to walk beside you right now. Instead of letting them flow naturally in and out of your space, you destroy your own grounding just to catch a few fleeting drops of their attention. Think about your own life. Ask yourself, who are you currently uprooting yourself for? Are you abandoning your own quiet center to chase a current that is already pulling away? What would happen if you simply stayed exactly where you are? Pause. Breathe. Bring your attention deeply back to your own foundation. The next time you feel the panic of a fading connection, plant your feet. Imagine yourself as the steady rock. Let the water flow past you without jumping in to chase it. You do not have to abandon yourself to earn a place in someone's life. Grounding yourself in your own worth allows the right connections to wash over you naturally, without force. But when you finally stop chasing the water, the quiet that remains can feel overwhelming, because beneath the noise of your own constant effort is a silence waiting to be heard. 5. The silence that reveals the truth. What if the silence you are so terrified of is actually the most honest answer you could ever receive? There is a strange kind of freedom in finally letting things go quiet. We are deeply afraid of silence in our relationships. When we stop texting, calling, or organizing the plans, the quiet that follows can feel devastating. You panic. You think, if I do not speak first, we will never speak again. So you quickly fill the empty space. You send a casual message. You ask a simple question. You find any excuse just to keep the noise going. You do this to avoid the painful realization that you are the only one generating the sound in the room. You fear the silence because you are afraid it will prove that you are not as important to them as they are to you. Buddhist wisdom teaches us to listen to the silence rather than run from it. In Buddhist thought, truth is often found not in the busy noise of the world, but in the quiet spaces between the words. Silence is not an empty void that you need to fear or fix. It is a mirror. It reflects the pure, unadorned reality of the present moment exactly as it is. Buddhism reminds us that observing reality without immediately reacting to it is the highest form of clarity. Imagine an old, heavy bronze bell hanging in a quiet temple courtyard. When you strike the bell, it rings out, filling the air with a deep, resonant sound. If you constantly stand next to it, striking it over and over, minute by minute, you will only ever hear the noise of your own effort. You will never know if the wind is strong enough to ring the bell on its own. It is only when you step back, drop the mallet, and allow the courtyard to grow perfectly quiet that you can discover what naturally moves the bell. In your life, you are constantly striking the bell. You are doing all the heavy lifting to make the connection sing. You send the picture, you ask about their day, you arrange the meeting. But in doing so, you are deafening yourself to the truth. You must let the relationship go quiet so you can see if they will ever reach out to ring the bell themselves. You have to let the connection breathe without your force. If the silence stretches on for days, weeks, or forever, that is not a failure on your part. That is a profound, albeit painful, revelation of the truth. Think about your own life. Ask yourself, are you avoiding the silence because you already know what it will tell you? What truth are you desperately trying to drown out with your constant reaching out? Pause. Breathe. Step back from the bell. Let the quiet settle into the space between you and this person. Observe the silence without trying to manage it. Let the feeling of being ignored rise and simply watch it pass. You do not need to fear the quiet. Let the silence do the work for you, revealing who is truly willing to walk beside you. But facing this truth brings up our deepest human vulnerabilities, because beneath every reaction to that silence is a fear waiting to be understood. 6. Healing the fear of being forgotten. What if the frantic urge to send one more message is not driven by love, but by a quiet, deep-seated fear? Here is the truth we rarely admit to ourselves. We do not just fear losing the person, we fear being entirely forgotten. When you stop initiating every conversation, a dark thought creeps into your mind. You think, if I do not reach out, they will not remember me. I will simply fade from their life. You feel a sense of panic. You begin to tie your own value to their memory of you. You believe that your existence in their world depends entirely on your endless effort to stay visible. So you force a text, you send a picture, you try to remain relevant. You are exhausting yourself, fighting a daily battle just to prove that you still matter. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that this fear is deeply tied to the ego. The ego desperately seeks permanence. It wants to be seen, remembered, and acknowledged by the world outside. But Buddhism reminds us that our true essence, our true worth, does not depend on the shifting attention of other people. Seeking your reflection in someone else's mind is a recipe for endless suffering, because human attention is always changing and impermanent. Your value is not determined by whether someone else remembers to call you. Imagine a single seed buried deep within the dark earth. It is completely unseen. No one is watching it. No one is checking on it every hour to see if it is still there. But the seed does not panic in the dark. It does not frantically push through the soil before it is ready, just to prove to the world that it exists. It rests in the silence. It draws strength from the quiet. It knows that its ability to grow and blossom is entirely contained within itself, completely independent of who is looking. In your daily life, you are acting like a seed terrified of the dark. You are exhausted because you keep pushing yourself up to the surface, trying to catch the light of someone else's attention. You think that if they ignore you, your worth disappears. But your value is not a notification on a screen. Your importance is not measured by how quickly someone replies, or whether they think of you on a busy afternoon. You do not need to constantly remind someone of your presence for your presence to be deeply valuable. Ask yourself, are you truly trying to connect with this person, or are you just trying to reassure yourself that you have not been forgotten? What if you allowed yourself to be unseen for a little while, trusting that you are still whole? Pause. Breathe. The next time the fear of being forgotten rises in your chest, do not rush to fix it with a message. Let the feeling exist without reacting. Sink deeply into the quiet earth of your own presence. You are enough, even in the silence, even when no one is watching. But accepting your own quiet worth is only part of the journey. Because once you stop filling the space with your own fear, you finally allow the space to show you what is real. 7. Creating space for genuine reciprocity. What if the distance you are trying so hard to close is exactly what the relationship needs to survive? Here is the truth about genuine connection. It cannot exist without empty space. When you care deeply for someone, your natural instinct is to pull them close. When they pull back an inch, you step forward a mile. You rush to fill every quiet gap in the conversation. You offer help before they ask. You organize the plans, and you send the long messages. You do this because you deeply believe that more effort equals more love. But by constantly flooding the space between you, you are leaving absolutely no room for the other person to step forward. You are suffocating the relationship in your attempt to save it. By doing all the work, you leave them no room to actively choose you. Buddhist wisdom teaches us to revere the empty space. In Buddhist thought, emptiness is not a terrifying void that must be frantically filled. It is the open, fertile ground from which all beautiful things naturally arise. A bowl is only useful because of the empty space inside it. A room is only livable because of the space between the walls. Without space, there is no movement, no growth, and no true freedom. Imagine building a fire on a very cold night. You want the fire to be warm and bright. So, you take every heavy log you can find and pack them tightly together in the fire pit, leaving absolutely no gaps between the wood. You strike the match, but the flame quickly sputters and dies. Why? Because a fire cannot burn without oxygen. It needs the empty, invisible space between the logs to breathe. If you smother it with too much wood, you will permanently put out the very flame you are trying to build. In your relationships, your constant, anxious reaching out is the heavy wood. You are stacking log after log on a tiny spark, terrified that it will go out in the cold. You text them in the morning, check in during the afternoon, and ask why they are quiet at night. You are smothering the fire. You are giving the other person no air to breathe, no time to miss you, and no opportunity to bring their own effort to the connection. A genuine relationship requires both people to tend the fire, but they cannot add their own wood if you have already filled the entire space. Think about your own life. Ask yourself, are you giving this connection enough air to breathe? If you stepped back and left an empty space, do you trust that they would eventually step forward to meet you? Pause, breathe. The next time you feel the urge to overcompensate, step back. Leave a gap in the conversation. Do not rush to fill the quiet with your own anxiety. Allow the empty space to exist between you. You must give the connection permission to breathe without your force. Because a bond that only exists when you do all the work is not a shared fire. It is a solo performance that will eventually burn you out. And accepting this reality opens the door to the final, most profound transformation. What if the peace you have been desperately searching for is waiting for you at the exact moment you finally stop trying so hard? We began this journey looking at the quiet, heavy exhaustion of always being the one to reach out first. We looked at the pain of pulling a heavy rope, terrified that if you let go, the relationship would drift away. You have spent so much time holding on to connections that you forgot how to hold on to yourself. But look at what holding on so tightly has done to you. It has drained your spirit. It has made you doubt your own value. It has turned love into an anxious task. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that suffering ends when we stop demanding that reality look different than it is. Letting go is not about giving up on people. It is not about building cold walls around your heart or becoming bitter because someone did not appreciate your effort. It is simply a profound return to your own center. It is the deep practice of non-attachment. When you finally release the desperate need to force a conversation, you stop abandoning yourself. You stop looking for your worth in someone else's shifting attention. You allow yourself to be rooted in your own quiet presence. Imagine that heavy rope on the riverbank one last time. For months, perhaps years, your hands have been burning, your muscles trembling as you pulled against the current. You convinced yourself that your happiness depended on keeping that boat close. But what happens the moment you finally open? But look at your own hands. They are finally open. The burning stops. The deep, heavy exhaustion fades into a profound, silent relief. You can finally sit by the natural beauty of the river, listen to the water, and breathe. You may have lost the illusion of control, but you have reclaimed your peace. Think about your own life today. You have done enough. You have extended your hand, you have offered your warmth, and you have built the bridge. Your part is done. If someone wishes to walk across that bridge to meet you, they will. If they do not, you must let them stay exactly where they are. You do not need to walk the entire distance for both of you just to pretend you are not alone. True self-respect is knowing when to stop pouring your pure water into an empty cup. Pause, breathe, let that sink in. Feel the quiet stillness within yourself. You no longer need to carry the weight of connections that cannot stand on their own. You can trust the silence. You can trust the empty space. You can trust that the people meant to be in your life will not require you to force them to stay. They will choose you effortlessly and freely. If these lessons touched your heart, share this video with someone who may need a little more peace today. Let life meet you where you are.